There are a lot of students that don't ever go outside, and they are missing lots of really cool things. I felt like if we could get them out in nature, not just, outside my classroom, not, around the school building, but really be in it, they would understand ecosystems. They would understand how nature has to work together. They really understand it more if you're submerged in it.
This is biology class, 10th grade biology. We're studying just kind of the ecosystems, how they interact with each other and the species in the ecosystem, how they make it thrive.
This picture is a landscape photograph taken at Maplewood State Park. The focus of this picture is a deciduous forest in the background. This picture has a unique angle of perspective as it was taken from the base of a widowmaker looking up along the trunk. This fallen tree is not only a source of food for decomposers such as insects and fungi, but it will add new nutrients to the soil, promoting new growth.
Tammy and Shauna are both teachers at New York Mills High School. Tammy is a visual arts teacher. Shauna is a science teacher, and I have been working as a facilitator or coach with teachers that are working on arts integration. As part of that work, I've been working with Shauna and Tammy to support them as they develop their unit combining science and the visual arts.
Shauna and I were discussing many different things that we could do between classes.
Students have been learning about the different ecosystems, and an ecosystem is an environment where animals, plants, and other organisms work together to maintain a system.
And we had discussed that would be a great option for us doing a project just with biology, but also use some photography, which is a huge part of the science. When we looked at our standards, every one of our standards said that we should push some kind of technology, and it also fit in with some of the classes that I'm already teaching where we felt a little bit comfortable with the cameras and different things. And so I've helped out with a lot of the planning, and then also first hour during my prep.
Our big plan is to have them take a picture of an ecosystem, and then they have to actually zoom in and take a picture of something that would be one part of that ecosystem, and then they'll do another part of it, and then they have to explain how it interacts. It could be water that's there, they could pick a tree, they could pick a hole in the tree that a squirrel lives in, or components that make up that ecosystem that have to work together to keep that ecosystem alive, basically. Kids can describe things, but do they understand it, and can they put it together, manipulate it, Do they really get it? Can they apply it?
The science concepts that they were looking at, Shauna and Tammy felt like it really lent itself naturally to getting students out into ecosystems and looking at them closely through the lens of the camera.
I just think this has been an amazing adventure for us. And for me, I was that single art teacher who had no one to talk to. I have so many people now that I have met through the Perpich Center.
The Perpich Center for Arts Education is a Minnesota state education agency located in Golden Valley, Minnesota. The Perpich Arts Integration Network of Teachers is a multi-year professional development program for teachers. We assemble teams of teachers at schools, and that includes about 45 teachers in 9 school teams in the last year. Our intention is to guide their development as designers of arts-integrated units of instruction and to make the products of their learning visible to them and to the other teachers in the network. When we were designing the Purpose Arts Integration Network of Teachers, we had directives from the legislature to refer to research, use research-based practices, and to develop a standards-based approach.
They helped break down what part of the standard do we really want to assess and how to make it look the way we want it to look. And so they were really good at helping guide us, not necessarily giving us answers, but guiding us and having good questions for us to actually be able to come up with what we really wanted out of the project.
When you're looking at that photo log, isn't it also helping you understand if the student understands the relational parts to an ecosystem by the things that they chose?
Right, because they have to
Bullets.
determine which photos go to which and
Ecosystem.
how do they belong, where they might have 3 photos that are of the same dandelion. Those are the 3 you'd compare. You're not going to compare my dandelion to the long shot of the whole thing. You're going to compare just the dandelion ones.
Sounds good. And are all those questions the same?
On each one of them?
Yes.
Yeah. Explain how human action changes an ecosystem.
So they're probably first of all going to be describing what that human impact is, and then they're going to be analyzing its effect on an ecosystem? Is that how you're reading that benchmark?
To us, it really isn't, do they have a good photo? But do they understand those things? Deb Knutson came as a visiting artist, and Deb talked about all the different kinds of photography that was out there. She talked about different textures. She went across through the rule of thirds and all the different things that we talked about in our standards.
One of my main interests has always been photography.
It was amazing to have another former art teacher come in because she knew how to teach and she knew how to get them involved during the class times that she had.
This has probably been the best science class I've ever taken because of this project. Reading out of a textbook is kind of boring, but like doing these projects is really fun because you just gain so much knowledge because you're actually doing it instead of just reading all the time. You just kind of get bored and sometimes fall asleep.
We are at Maplewood State Park and we are taking pictures of anything in their ecosystem, wetland, deciduous, or grassland.
We got pictures of a lot of little flowers, quite a few mushrooms and things, some birds, and then we have to do a little report on each picture we take on what we took it of and what it does to the ecosystem.
I think the students took the ecosystems and the science standards and really worked hard on figuring out those things and then tied the art in right with it so they were a very equal part. When we were out in Maplewood, they had started to look at things in nature more as artists also, besides what were requirements of our project.
They really took ownership and wanted to find something cool and different than the rest of their classmates. And I think that more learning actually occurs when we can submerge them in different environments than just the regular ed classroom. And if I had my druthers, I would have an outdoor classroom. So
it was amazing to see how well behaved our students were out there and how they really got into taking the photos. The next step we have is the narrative, and I'm hoping that part they will do just as well with.
We found specific things in our biome that we had chosen for us, and we're putting it into a photo story project and narrating it. The emphasis in the space of this photo was the little bee sitting on the dandelion. The bee helps pollinate other plants and helps the plants and genes keep going.
when they're narrating the photos, I think we'll really be able to understand, did they really understand why we did the project and the importance of those standards that we included in the assessment.
The angle used in the photo was eye level. The rock helps the ecosystem by giving shelter to animals to live under. Also, you can see that it's a place for moss to grow on and other plants. A forest fire could affect an ecosystem by being good and bad. It would burn down and destroy habitats that animals live in. It also would be a good thing because fires stimulate growth in new trees and shrubs.
Tammy and I will be assessing it. We'll be looking at both the science and the art aspects when we are looking at it to see if they have exceeded proficiency, if they meet it, or if they have not.
Well, I think she talked even more past that.
Right.
Because she talked about perspective in a whole different way of how the trail got smaller as it went away, and she talked about value changes and everything.
And right. So, and then the science part, like she talked about how the ant helped the leaf and the leaf helped the ant, so they work together. Proficiency, to me, it's important because it means that they understand the standards that we're trying to implement. And I think as a teacher, that's your goal, is to they understand the standards and why it's important, why they need to know these things. I'm kind of excited. I have quite a few more actually exceeding than I thought would understand. And even some kids that don't really necessarily like science, I think that including the art with it, I think it helped them get the picture, I guess. I don't know if you want to say that. I think they understood it more. I think she did a good job talking about the butterfly's job in the ecosystem. She talked about how it pollinates because it goes to other flowers and the pollen gets on the butterfly. But also she talked about how important it is for a food source, which people kind of forget that butterflies are food source because they're pretty and they don't think that other things eat them. But she actually included more than just one thing that might eat it. So that was a good job. Tammy and I have similar teaching styles. We have similar personalities, I think, that we really get along well. For her and I, learning together is really good professional development because we're learning all along the way with the students also. She keeps telling me that, she goes, now I'm turning into a science nerd. That's this ecosystem and that's that ecosystem.
We have a lot of similarities. We like to joke with each other. We like to joke with the students a little bit too, where it's a good fit. As teachers, we don't have time to just sit down and discuss our curriculum with each other, nor do we maybe not think that it's that important, but when we do this together, there's a whole new respect between teachers that really help in a school system, not just for our curriculum and our students, but for the rapport between each other.
The panel review process is a process of looking at student work. Probably one of the most valuable things that we do with teachers, that opportunity to reflect in a really thoughtful way and with peers, with other people who are doing the same work. There's no replacement for that sharing of ideas and the realizations that can come out of spending the time and reflecting on what students have done. When we did the panel review process with the student work that came out of the Arts Integrated unit that Tammy and Shauna developed, Tammy and Shauna were in the room, and then there were several other teachers who were the panel from other schools that are also participating in this network of teachers. What Tammy and Shauna brought was an example of work from one of the students, and we asked the teachers to bring student work that they had a hard time evaluating so that other teachers can talk through what the different challenges might be in evaluating that same work.
We had a checklist and everything was on that the students needed to know and do before the end of the project. They did the project, they enjoyed the picture taking, they asked me questions, they asked Ms. Olson questions. It was more engaging for them to participate. And I really wanted them to, get a little fresh air and see what really cool things that they could find. And I have seen incredible pictures, and I think that it just made them appreciate nature and being outside a little bit more. Art and science really go good together.